finally. So, welcome to the career show. In this show, we normally talk about different career options. Please, can you keep your video audio on mute, Taj? Yeah. So, welcome to the career show, all of you. Those who are watching, welcome. Good morning. Those who are in India and those abroad, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So in this show we normally talk about different career options, different career choices that one would have in their youth. Today we have the topic of career options or career in economic research in India and abroad, in particular in US. We have two guests. First one is Azhar Uddin, who is a PhD scholar in the University of Washington, in fact, Washington State University. Well, Azhar will give his introduction actually, but I'm telling it in brief. And then Mr. Tajuddin Khan, who is a PhD scholar at Okhlama State University. Both were my friends in college, and good to have you on the show, both of you. Welcome, both of you. I'd like to give the floor to Azhar to introduce himself, and then to Taz, and then we'll talk about this particular topic. I'll ask you very simple questions related to career, related to your journey. How did you how did you reach to the stage that you are currently in? What were your educational background before you started doing PhD in economics? So those things we will discuss in this particular show. So over to you, Azhar.
Thank you, Vishwajit. Thank you for having me on your show. My name is Azhar Uddin. I'm currently a fourth year PhD student at Washington State University, which is at Pullman, Washington. So I came to the United States in the year 2015 to do my master's in economics. Before coming to the US, I did master's at Madras School of Economics. Before that, I did my undergraduate in economics at Delhi University. I'm basically from Assam. That's a brief introduction about me.
Okay, thanks, Azhar. Over to you, Taz.
Yes, hi Pani. Thank you for having me. So, thank you for the introduction. But let me introduce myself. My name is Taj. I'm PhD student at Economics Department at Okhlama State University. And before coming here, I did my undergrad from Aligarh Muslim University and masters from Madras School in Chennai, along with Azhar and Pani sitting here. And after my masters, I worked for almost 6 years in the research field. 2 years I worked with the National Institute of Agriculture Policy Institute in Delhi based. It's a ICR, Indian Conservation think tank. And second work I did with almost 3.5 years with IFPRI, International Food Policy Institute. So they have a headquarters in South Asia. So I worked for 6 years and then I planned for my PhD, and now I'm pursuing my third year. I came in 18 fall. Yeah.
Okay, so my first question to Taj: why did you choose to go to US for your PhD? Why don't you do it in India? What was your motivation?
Okay. It's a difficult question, first of all. It's not easy.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, like I was working for an international organization
Okay.
where I can see people from like top Ivy League universities from US, and it was very good learning for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no plans to pursue my PhD, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for almost 6 years, and I realized very late in academia that I should go for my PhD program.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, like I was working with my supervisor, he was from Harvard Kennedy, one from Maryland. So that excites me to like go ahead with the US universities.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I landed in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Is it only for the brand image, or there's more to it?
No, you'll definitely find a big difference.
Okay.
You'll find a big difference. And somehow there is a brand and there is a like categorization of Ivy League and universities ranking.
Mm-hmm.
It does matter in academia.
Okay, but does it matter also for jobs? Like when you will apply for job, will be in job market in future?
It definitely matters. For example, take example from India.
Mm-hmm.
Graduates from IIT and IIMs,
Mm-hmm.
like highly preferred in the job markets, whether corporates or
Right, right.
research.
Yeah.
In the same way, like having a degree from research institutes in US universities and lots of exposures and good knowledge experience that help you in landing a good job. So I think that is a win-win situation. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Tajbhai. Same question goes to Azhar. What was your motivation? Why did you go to? I know that you were in IIM Bangalore, and you were one of the best institute in India. Why didn't you do a PhD from there? Why did you have to go to US for your PhD?
As Taj rightly told, it's a difficult question to answer, but let me try to answer your question. So I think the value an US PhD will add, because it has general acceptability throughout all the countries. So if you do a PhD from any other country, let's say from India, I don't know whether that degree will be acceptable easily. I'm sure it will be acceptable in many other countries also, but I'm not sure that will be easily acceptable in most of the countries. But
Right.
when we have a US PhD degree, that is generally acceptable in almost every country in the world.
I see.
So that was one of the main factor of doing PhD in the United States. Then practically I can go any other country and teach wherever I wish to teach.
Okay, so actually it gives you more opportunities, more options to explore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
That's right.
great. But why not Europe? Why US? I know in economics actually US PhD is valued more than European PhD. Not in science and other fields, but at least in economics. But are there other regions also?
Europe, actually, in Europe there aren't many so-called good universities as such compared to US. In US, you'll have all types of universities, very good, and not so good, and so on. But in Europe, not all universities are recognized.
Okay.
So usually for many people, by default option for application is the US, because you can apply to your like if you're like a very good student, you can go to a very good university. If you think you will not be able to get into a very good school, then you can apply to maybe lower university also.
Okay.
You will get all types of university in the US, but that is little difficult in Europe. But there are, of course, some very good universities, which are usually it's little difficult also to get through to those universities in Europe, which are really good.
Okay, okay. So that's but in terms of the program, what's the difference? Uh,
So US has a general pattern. So it's like, so this is usually in US, all the universities, they have 5 years program. So first 2 years are usually for the coursework, then you do research for the 3 years. But in Europe, there's a little bit difference in some universities. Some good universities, they also have this North American degree system, like 5 years of PhD program. But there are many European universities where they have only 3 years of program, where you just straight into you start research. But in the US, that doesn't work. So you have to do your coursework for 2 years and then you do your research.
okay. So that is the main difference.
That is the main difference.
Okay. So the question is to Taj. So Taj, did you also consider coming to Europe, or US was your only option, or you simply wanted to go to US?
Yes, definitely. Like I applied at one place called Göttingen State University, University of Göttingen.
Okay.
It's like a 2.5 hour drive from like Berlin.
Okay.
So while working at DIFPRI, I realized like there's a very big flagship program run by ACAR and some big international donors, like global food programs. So while working at IFPRI, I realized that I should apply for this program, but I didn't get through the program because the terms and conditions are a little different. And Azhar is right. My boss also told me like I wanted to you go to like US because I truly believe that US PhD programs are very rigorous. In terms of coursework compared to Europe, it's very difficult. Except the top universities from the Europe, like you can finish your degree in 3 years. In the US, you have to 3 years of coursework, including your specialized courses. So there's a difference. It's a very difficult coursework here. I think that adds more value to the PhD program. Yeah.
Yeah, but the stipend amount is more in Europe, right, as compared to US.
No, it varies from like university to universities.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think it varies a lot. In Europe also, a lot of universities are paying not good enough money compared to like other universities in Europe also.
Okay.
In US also it varies from state to state. Within a state, there is a variation in the prices, and in the same department, you'll find it like one guy is getting something big, some different amount than someone else. So it's like quite possible. Yeah.
Okay, because in in Europe actually PhD is considered as a job actually, right? You get paid
In
as
US
salary.
too, let me correct you, Pani. In US too, any PhD students in any department, either he is working as a teaching assistantship or working as a RA. So, and they are like part-time jobs. So, like 20 hours in a week we have to work.
Okay.
Where a regular like employee work for 14 hours, right, in a week.
Right.
So we also have to work either as a teaching assistant, like taking tutorials, the evaluations of grades, like putting online something like that, and taking like publishing exams. And some people like enrolled in research also. So like in my case, I do 10 hours like teachership and 10 hours research in my department.
Okay.
And it varies from year to year. Sometimes like they ask for like full-time RA-ship or sometimes they ask for teachership. So in US too, you have to work to get the money. It's not like free scholarship. You have to work as a part. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Taz. So we'll come back to these questions on PhD programs and PhD program in US and other places. But basic question, we'll go back to from the very beginning as to what motivated you to, and this question is to Azhar, what motivated to you first of all to go to the field called economics and economic research in particular. Why don't you consider a career in industry? Because most of us from MSc did go to a career in industry. But why don't you consider that path? Rather, you preferred going for a PhD in economics. What was the motivation?
So basically, I have been studying economics for a very long time. Did my undergraduate, then masters, and now PhD. So it was very natural that when I finished my undergraduate, my natural choice was to go for masters in economics only, not in any other field.
Okay.
And the second question you asked was regarding what?
Why don't you choose a career in industry? Rather, you preferred going for a PhD in economics.
Okay, to give you a very honest answer, actually I tried to get into industry. I did not get through.
No. Even after the campus selection was over, you could have easily got a job, right? When you were in IIMB, I think even at that time, you could have got a job. Like many people got job after the master's program. So it's not like you have to get a job in your campus selection alone. I mean, you have opportunity even after that. So why didn't you try, or it was always in your mind that you will go for a PhD?
No, it was not in my mind always that I'll go for PhD. So I was planning after my master's I'll take up a job and that's it. Then when I started working at IIM Bangalore as a teaching assistant, then actually I realized the value of having a PhD degree.
Okay.
So I think it gives you more flexibility when you have, and I always wanted to teach.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I opted for PhD.
Okay.
And the second reason is it gives you more flexibility if you have a PhD degree.
Flexibility
so let's say
in terms
you
of what?
Sorry?
Flexibility in terms of what?
Flexibility in terms of, let's say you start working in industry and let's say you do not like the jobs. But once you have a PhD degree, there are many jobs which will be waiting for you. And that will not be the case if you have a master's degree in economics. Then it will be a little difficult to switch to academics.
So you mean you have the flexibility of either working in the industry as well as in the academia, right?
Yeah, that's one of the other reasons why I chose to go for PhD. It will give more flexibility in terms of what type of job I want to do.
Okay. Same question goes to Taj. Why? What was the main reason? I mean, I know that initially you were also interested for a job in in industry, but also being from Uttar Pradesh, I'm sure you value the importance being a civil servant or a career in government. What was the motivation to go for a PhD in economics, to be an academician, and the fact that today is a Teachers' Day? I think it's worth asking this question to you. That what's the motivation to being a researcher or a teacher, and yeah, in a subject like economics?
Basically, I'll start with my like after like plus two intermediate.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like when I passed my intermediate, I had no idea like what should I pursue because at that time I was like neither prepared for engineering or for like any other exams.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like I ended up like getting admission into Aligarh. I tried for Delhi University, but the criteria for merit admission is very difficult in Delhi
Right.
University.
Right.
So somehow I ended up in Aligarh Muslim University, and I wanted to get some good subjects, and I had no thoughts of like economics in my mind at that time. One of my elder brother, he's a professor in Delhi University. He guided me like, why don't you look for economics? It has a very ongoing like demand. There's a jobs also, and you can do your PhD later also. So like both academia and corporate will be secure. So go for this.
Okay.
So at that point of time, I have like admitted into the economics program, and then he told me to like take mathematics and statistics because I had my PCM, like physics, chemistry, and math. So I opted the mathematics and statistics.
Okay.
So that was a good point of for me to like explore the economics. So first year it was like micro macro. It was very good for me. Like how does like household economic works? How does money and banking works? Like how does kind of monetary policy or physical policy shocks affects
So you studied in AMU, right? You studied in AMU.
AMU, Aligarh Muslim University, yeah.
Okay.
So,
but is the
and then
AMU program, is the AMU bachelor's program as good as DU bachelor's program?
Definitely. Definitely. Just being Aligarh and people don't have much exposure. So I will say that academic program is very good, but it lacks in somehow like the exposure. People have no idea like how to submit at that point in time. It was not very common to apply for good schools and there's no coaching facilities available. People had no idea like how to get the question papers of past years.
Okay.
It was very, very difficult.
Okay.
And plus the financial issue was a big concern to travel to Delhi, filling the application. It was like big of a concern. But I am being lucky one because my brother was a faculty in Delhi University, so I got a chance to like explore like D School, ISI, IJTR, and other places.
Okay.
And eventually Madras too. I ended up getting admission into Madras School of Economics with you.
Yeah.
The same cohort, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that was a turning point for me because I didn't know like what I'm going to do. But after master, while I was studying at MSc, I realized doing a dissertation under like Jalina Begum and Kavi Kumar, two of my like good professors.
Right.
Like I think I should work in research. Though I was not good at that point of time, but somehow I was not very inclined towards corporate.
Oh, I see.
And as Azhar is rightly said that we have tried in one or two companies in the college placement,
Right.
but we didn't get it.
Right.
But after masters, I wait for 2-3 months. I was looking for research jobs. I never applied for the corporates. I was looking for research job, and I ended up like at the National Institute of Agricultural Economics and Policy Research in Delhi. Then, like I worked for 2.5 years, then 3 years, IFPRI later. And while working at IFPRI, while working at project, I realized it fascinated me a lot. There are a lot of exposures. Like you can feel like working in the fields. Like more interested, like how does farmers optimize the resources?
It's a Delhi-based institute,
individual-
right? It's a Delhi-based institute.
Yes, they have a headquarter in Washington DC, but for the South Asia, they have a headquarter in New Delhi. So I worked for 3.5 years there, and it was a very good learning for me. And for that reason, I think one of my professor, Dr. Pratap Singh Bittal, Dr. Joshi and Avinash, Devesh, everyone is so like helpful to me that they motivated me like Taj, I think you have been doing a good work for last couple of years. I think you should go. And I was realizing too that I should go for PhD, but I was getting good enough money, so I was not interested. So there was a trade-off. Should I go for a 5-year PhD or should I earn money and buy a house, a car, something like that?
Okay.
The kind of dilemma ongoing it was.
Okay.
But somehow I decided, no, I have to quit this job. I have to go for PhD, and I end up like
Another question on that before I go to Azhar.
Yeah.
So I know you for a very long time, Taz,
Yeah.
right? I
Okay. Yeah.
remember when you came to MSc, you were struggling with English also because you're from
Yes.
UP, from Hindi medium,
I could
right?
not get job in corporates. Yeah.
Right. Now you're speaking very fluently, very confidently, even better than me, I would say.
Uh-huh.
So, so I'm quite happy first of all, and secondly, was that a challenge? Was that a challenge when you were doing research in that food processing research institute at
Yeah.
Delhi? Was that a
Yeah.
challenge that was that some sort of a concern that given your background, you probably will struggle first of all to go to US and to do a PhD in economics, which requires a lot of writing in
Yeah.
English, that to a proper academic writing. Was that a concern? And secondly, why? How did you overcome that concern? And how did you ensure that you are also good at English language? This is very good for actually our viewers, those who come from Hindi medium, and I think a chunk of our Indian students come from Hindi
Now
medium
you're
and vernacular
yeah.
schools, right?
Okay. So you were right. I had a lot of I had faced a lot of struggle during my college days,
Mm-hmm.
and for that reason, I think I can say that I could not get a job in the corporates,
Right.
and because government is different.
Mm-hmm.
I even when I joined my first job, it was difficult for me initially. I've never done the research, I've never extracted and done the work on national level data sets, and plus writing was poor initially.
Yeah.
But eventually, reading articles from journals, good journals, practicing more, revising more and more time. So suppose my boss told me initially once I got the job, he told me you have to write one paper in 6 months, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you do this work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very challenging for me
Okay.
and a very struggle also for me.
Okay. Okay.
It was a big trouble because my English writing was not good at that point of time. I was missing so many tense and past objectives and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, I didn't know how to work on statistical softwares and data extractions on the NSS national level data.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my senior helped me. So I must say, it was a continuous dedication.
Okay.
And when I started reading the papers,
Mm-hmm.
I feel motivated.
Okay.
In academia, if you write good papers,
Mm-hmm.
you will be good.
Okay.
You will be good figure. So that motivated me. Taj, why don't you write a paper
Right.
that people know you in future?
Okay.
And that I started writing, revising every time. Lots of comments, full of red color from my boss.
Okay.
Taj, you need to do a lot.
Okay.
So I know a lot of times, I have been punched by the boss also, the hard words. It's okay. It's all learning life.
Okay.
And I still touch with all of them, my professors, my bosses, and always pay great tribute to them. They are the one who shaped my career.
Okay. Great.
And somehow it was a big struggle initially. Those who knows me, like you and Azhar, it was a hard time for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember I could not participate in debate due to the English issues.
Yes.
It was a big, but eventually by working for some time,
Okay.
interacting with people in meetings, in conferences,
Yeah.
I think eventually it will overcome out.
Right.
But you
right.
need to do a lot of hard work and practice for that. It's not easy.
Okay.
You have to work on that.
So the conclusion is that reading papers on a regular basis has helped you a lot to improve your language.
Whatever you like. If you like novels, if you like journal articles,
Okay.
if you like chit chat, do whatever you want.
Okay.
You have to engage yourself and you have to communicate yourself.
Okay.
This
Great.
is my.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. There is a question from it's question to Taj. Sorry, Azhar. And obviously, Taj, you can also add to that. There's a question from Amber Khan. Can you please discuss scholarship options for Indian students wanting to pursue PhDs in US? So, can you throw some light on this, Azhar? And Taj, please come in if you feel, if you think that you can add something to it.
Okay, so I'll talk about the in economics field. The admission process is more or less the same, but since I have an economics field, I'll talk about how the scholarship things works in the US.
Okay.
So if you're applying for, let's say, PhD, you can be almost certain you'll get. So in US they call it funding; they don't call it scholarship.
Okay.
So if you apply for PhD, it can be almost certain that they will offer you funding from the universities,
Okay.
which is usually
It is
fully
guaranteed.
covered.
So you get a PhD, you get a offer to do PhD, and you are guaranteed of
It's
funding.
not guaranteed for all the students. You know, in a PhD cohort, let's say there are 15 students, there will be one or two odd students who will come here as self-funded.
Okay.
It's not very unusual, but usually people from India, and it's very difficult to finance your PhD. It's
Right.
5 years old, right?
Right.
So it's for people like us who come from India, it's literally impossible. So even if you get admission with no funding, we just don't go there.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I can
So
imagine. It's a very
yes,
expensive thing,
it's
especially if you
very
are from
expensive.
India or other developing countries.
Yes, and the good thing about applying to US universities is you don't have to apply for funding separately.
Okay.
So once you fill up the form, you just show your intention that you are also applying for funding. That's good enough. So they will consider you by default. They will consider you for funding also.
Okay, I see. But that's not the case in Europe, by the way, right? Because not
I
everyone
don't
is
think that's the
eligible
case
for a
in Europe.
PhD.
The process is a little bit different in
Right.
Europe. But
Because
in the
in
US,
Europe,
all the universities they have same uniform application and funding opportunities throughout
is
all
it
the universities.
across disciplines or is just for economics?
I think it should be applicable to all the other disciplines also.
And
Not
for how
only
many years you are given this scholarship? Is it 5 years or 6 years?
it's usually guaranteed for 5 years. In some universities, it's guaranteed for 4 years. But you once you finish 4 years, you usually get another years of funding.
Extended.
That's not a good.
Okay. But is it sufficient to survive in the US? And our second question is does it vary with respect to university and the place where the university is located? Because I know that if, for example, you are in Newark University, right? It's quite expensive to be in Newark compared to say you are in Detroit and other places, interior places in the US.
Yes, exactly. So I think Taj also mentioned about this. So I think the real income in all the universities, I don't think they're statistically different. The nominal value might be a little bit different. So if you get into a university, let's say in the New York, obviously they'll pay you higher stipend.
Okay.
But if you get an admission in a small college town, then you'll be paid less. But your real income will be higher because the cost of living and all. So I think people should not be worried about this. Okay, this university is paying a little bit higher. Actually, that might not be higher in real terms.
Okay.
So I think more or less all the universities, depending on the place, in terms of real income, almost all the universities have the same income.
Okay. If I may ask you, I don't know if you feel free to avoid this question if you want to. What is the amount normally you get? Don't ask me my salary. Huh?
Okay.
I am allowed to ask.
So in US university, usually, they will pay stipend for you for 9 months.
Okay.
But there are some universities they will pay you for 12 months stipend also.
Okay.
But even if you, let's say, get 9 months of stipend, usually they will pay you enough. If you are single, let's say you are single, you are not married, they will pay you enough for 9 months so that you'll be able to save a few $1,000s so that you can survive the summer months also.
Oh, okay.
And usually you might get funding in summer also, but that's usually not guaranteed. 9 months is guaranteed. That's the usual norm in the US.
Okay. But are there also other funding sources beside what your university pays you? Because I know in UK you have many scholarships. You can have multiple scholarships, and you can earn more money from these scholarships, right? Like let's say you're doing PhD in Cambridge or Oxford, you have India scholarship, right? They have scholarship only for Indian students. There's one such scholarship I know in UK universities. Commonwealth scholarships, right? There's so many, right, such scholarships. Are there also such things in US?
So if you come with a scholarship, let's say from India, let's say from Indian government or any organization, then the university will not pay you.
Okay. So you cannot have dual scholarship, right? More than one at the same time.
Yeah, you will not get more than one scholarship. Okay. It's only one you will get, and you cannot work more. So we have a rule that we cannot work more than 20 hours a week.
Okay.
and we cannot work outside the campus. So there are limitations. And even if you can work, the PhD program is so rigorous that you will not have enough time to work beyond your required number of hours.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Khan?
Yes, Pani. Like this slide, like I will put my thought. I think like for PhD program, it is not a much of a concern for like funding. There's always a 99% of students that you will get funding in PhD program. It is like highly rare, impossible. Like you will see people that some universities are not paying it, but almost in US every PhD program is funded. Because like they need to hire as a TA or RA, right?
Right.
So I think it's funded. For masters, even in my university, I can talk on my behalf of my university. It's almost funded for master students also. In engineering, it's full funded.
Right.
They're getting good enough money. In other disciplines like psychology, English, economics, they get kind of partial funding, like as a team. But yeah, that is like not very good amount to cover the 12 months, but a lot of people are surviving on this.
Okay.
So it's better than nothing, right? It is good amount of money. You can survive on that. And like in New York, the amount is higher than Oklahoma. So my concern is my point is they give money on the basis of cost of living expenses.
Okay.
This is the benchmark they have set. And the amount is good enough to cover your 12 months expenditure. And let me tell you, Azhar has a lot of saving, I'm telling you. And if you talk to Azhar, he has thousands of dollars of savings in his account.
Okay.
And investing in share market. So he's a rich guy.
Okay. Now this is good for our viewers, because there is always this apprehension that you may not be able to fund yourself if you want to do PhD abroad, because obviously it takes 5-6 years, and then the cost of living is quite high in the US. But it's good to know that it's almost always funded.
But one thing to understand, you will not get funding in the undergrads.
Okay.
Mostly university in the US, they run on undergrad tuitions and other fees.
Okay.
So you will not get. It's very rare that people get some scholarship, additional scholarship. You will not get from the department. So it's very rare.
Okay.
So yeah, undergrads funding is very big concern.
But for research programs, it's always funded, right?
Yeah, you don't have to worry at all. It will be fully covered.
Okay. For research program, it's always funded, right?
Most of the time, 99%. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. Thanks, both of you. One question from my side, which is that how rigorous is the program in the US, and what is the level of mathematics? I've heard from people that is pretty difficult actually, if you are not from a maths background. But can you throw some light on that? How difficult it is, and what are the areas one should focus on from mathematics?
Okay, so let me take that. So as I told, you need quite a bit of mathematics if you are doing PhD in economics. So mathematics, so basically you need differentiation and integration. So if you know these things, it doesn't matter which background you have, even if you don't have economics background, but if you have a transcript or mark sheet where you have taken courses like calculus, 1, 2 or whatever, or you have taken pure maths courses, that will add to your, there will be a higher probability that you will get admission.
Okay.
So people here, the professor, they're looking for someone who is good at least in calculus, so that you'll be able to apply this mathematics in economics field. So I will say, once you start your PhD, so in every university there's something called qualifying exam. That is the toughest part.
Right.
And so depending on the university, the toughness will vary.
Right.
For example,
Right.
so let's say Harvard. So even if somebody gets into Harvard for whatever reason, it will be extremely difficult for him to pass the qualifying exam. And usually this qualifying exam happens at the end of your first year. If you cannot pass, they'll throw you out of the university.
Okay. Is it more difficult for these top universities compared to say some
it's
odd?
yeah, it's much more difficult in higher university. But if you go a little bit lower universities, even there also it's difficult. They have to maintain a minimum standard, right?
Right.
But it's not as difficult as the like top universities if you go to a lower universities.
Okay.
And that's the first hurdle as a PhD student. Once you qualify this exam, then you're officially called a PhD student. Otherwise, you're not sure whether you'll be in the department next year or not.
Okay.
And
What happens if you cannot qualify?
So they'll throw you out of the universities. So basically, in some universities, they have little mercy. So they will ask you to complete your masters, and then they'll ask you to leave.
Okay. So you get a master's degree, right? At
Yeah,
least that's what
you end up getting a master's degree. So what happens? Let's say after 1 year, you usually there are 2 attempts, right? So for qualifying, usually in almost all the universities, they'll give you two attempts to pass the exam.
Okay.
So if you can qualify, if you cannot qualify after both the attempts, then what they will do, some universities they'll straight away say, okay, now that's it, you can leave our university.
Okay.
And in some universities they'll ask you to stay for 1 more semester so that you can complete your masters, and then you'll of course leave.
Okay.
And this is really difficult, this qualifying exam. So if you're not good at maths, it will be really difficult to pass this qualifying exam in any of the US universities. They have minimum standards in all the universities.
Okay. Clear. But also, I would like to know, is it also important to know maths to write papers beside the qualifying exam that you were talking about? Is also important to know maths in order to write a good research paper? Because I know there are many areas of economics where you can write good research paper without even knowing much of math. I mean, I know the basic to learn basic econometrics you need to know some math, but you do not need to know maths at a level of say science or engineering, right? So you don't need that
I
level
don't
of
think you
mathematics.
need like that level of mathematics, but you need to have this basic really strong.
Okay.
Basically the differentiation, integration and optimization.
Okay.
And if you're good at this, I think you can manage, even if it is required the other stuff, you can manage those.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ajay. Okay, the next question to Taj. Taj, I would like to know what's your career plan? Do you want to come back to India and serve the nation, which is already a great nation? But I'd like to know from you, what's your plan? And so, what are the employment opportunities in the US after completing PhD in economics? And what are the opportunities if you come back from the US and you return from US to India? What are the opportunities? Do you really have advantage over other students who have done PhD, say from Hyderabad University or Osmania University or Aligarh University or such university? I'm not talking about ISI or DSE, but at least from the other central university or state universities. Yeah, go ahead.
So, in my case, like I still have not decided, but my options are open. Everyone will try to be in job market in US, and these days in US job markets, all the good universities from India, including the privates one too, Ashoka, Jindal, Ajim Premji,
Right.
IJDR, IITs, IIM, everyone coming into the US job markets to hire graduate students.
Oh, really?
Like for us, yeah. So definitely, we have a plan. I have a plan for myself that I will try to be open everywhere. It's not just India. I will try to be open for Europe and as in the Middle East too. So my concern is like, the first is like academia. If something will not work out in academia, I might go for research institution. And given the job market is so tight due to the coronavirus for the next 2-3 years, we may have to look for corporate, and we need your help in that part because you are going to be the giant
Always
in
there.
corporate.
I'm always there to help you out.
Yeah, you will come back to you in case like we are not getting good package. Yeah.
But coming to the second question, say for example, you return back to India and you go for an interview in any of those new IIMs. Okay,
Yeah.
will you have any advantage over, say, those who have done PhDs in local universities in India, state and central universities in India? How will you be treated? Uh,
That we have not experienced.
okay, you don't have
First
to
of
give
all,
NET exam, right? You don't have to give NET exam.
no. So I think like these days, like the new like UC rule is like once you are coming to top 500, you don't need to qualify for the net.
Okay.
So our universities come into top 500, so like we don't have to like we are like net is like waived off.
Okay.
That is not a concern. Like IIMs and everyone like they don't require for the net examination on other private universities. And you don't know like how the market will work for you in India, right? Basically, like a lot of people coming from US and trying the Indian job markets, but this is too tight these days. You know, the universities are coming to US and they have an option to like take people from top schools also. But somehow you'll see like people from India and other universities also like joining the part of it, right?
Right.
So you don't know how the system works.
Yeah.
That is not my concern right now. My concern will be something to explore the Indian job markets too.
Okay.
And that I'm open for it.
Okay. Okay. But when it comes to jobs in academia, in India, jobs are, I think, more secure compared to Western countries, right? You do not have this concept of tenureship, right? In India, you get assistant professorship, and that's a permanent job, right? You hold on to that job for rest of your life, right? It's less. I've never heard of any faculty being fired from an university in India, but that is a pretty normal thing in the U.S. And also in the U.S. In the Europe. What's your view on that?
Okay. So let me tell you, I know a couple of people who has recently been fired from IIMs, you know?
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I know a lot of people from IIMB and IIMA, right? So these days, like, except the government universities in India, all the private universities and the autonomous ones, including the IIMs, Ashoka, they have a almost similar policy like US, you know? So first of all, you will be hired as an assistant professor for a couple of years, let's say for 6 years. It varies from university to university, it's like 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
So the criteria is you have to be evaluated on your teaching skills and your publication skills.
Okay.
And if you're not able to meet the standard, apart from the lobby and site X factor, if everything is normal, you will be promoted to associate professors and you will be tenured. It's same like US. Somehow you are not able to do good in either teaching or research. Like let's say like the IIM Bangalore needs 3 A star paper in your like team journal, and somehow you have only 1. So it's up to them whether they are going to relieve you or they are going to keep you. It's up to the department committee, right? And most of the times, if you not perform, you'll be kicked out. And these days it's happening in the Ashoka, Jindal, and all these private institutions, including the Jim Prem.
Okay.
It's very common. Same like US pattern. First 6 years, you have been hired on a contract. You have to work hard. You have to publish good papers. And once you become the associate professor, you're all set to have a good life. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Taj. Next question is to Azhar. Azhar, I think you are doing your PhD in environmental science, if I'm not wrong. I don't know, environmental science or development economics, something like that, right? I don't remember exactly, but can you like tell us about your PhD, what the topic that you are doing? First of all, how do you choose a topic? Do you choose yourself or do you take help from others, from your faculties? How do you choose your topic, right? And who decides the who actually decides what the topic is going to be for your PhD program? And can you also talk a bit more about your topic?
Okay. So usually there are a few courses which are not specialized course. You have to take those courses initially. Let's say the first year of the PhD program. Let's say in economics, you have to take micro, macro, general mathematics, econometrics. These are the courses you have to take for sure.
Okay.
And once you're done with these courses, then there are some specialized courses. Those are called film courses. then you have to decide which field you want to go, and accordingly you will choose. First, you have to take those courses. Nobody will tell you which field you will choose. But at the end of the year, you do not have an advisor yet.
Okay.
So you decide on a field. So let's say, so they will say every department will have different fields. For example, fields like econometrics, there will be one field called econometrics. There will be one field called development economics. There will be a field called environmental economics. There will be a field called labor economics, and so on.
Okay.
So you decide which field you want to specialize.
Okay.
Usually you have to take 2 fields, and you have to take more courses in that field.
Okay.
Usually when you take those field courses, usually you need to develop a paper in those field courses. So that's how you get an idea of your future thesis topic, what it might be. Because you have already chosen a field, and most likely you'll have to submit a paper, some term paper or whatever. Even if that's not a very good paper, but that will give an idea what type of topic finally will end up in your thesis.
Okay.
So for me, let's say after doing my usual courses, macroeconomics, then I chose 2 fields. One is econometrics, and the another one is development economics.
Okay.
So in econometrics, I had to take another 2 courses. In development economics also, I had to take another 2 courses. So in those 2 courses, I developed a couple of papers, which will be now my papers ultimately in my thesis.
Okay.
So that's how it usually works. But some people might have a different.
But publication is not compulsory, right? You do not have
Which
to
one?
you do not have to publish paper to get your PhD, right? I mean, that's not
No.
a mandate thing to do.
That's not mandatory in most of the university, but I'm told there are very good universities, where you have to publish at least 1 or something like that. But let's say for my universities, what they are asking from us is they need 3 papers which are publishable.
Okay.
So that's the word they're using. So even if it is not published, that's all right. And usually people don't publish. Whenever they go to job market, usually they do not have any publication, at least in our department. If you have publication 1 or 2, that's very good. So it's not necessary. For most of the universities, it's not necessary that you have to publish a paper.
Okay. Cool. But tell us a bit about your research, what you're doing.
Yeah, so for I'm doing something on development economics. Since it's still evolving, I will not be able to give so much information on that.
Sure.
Because at least at this moment, I'm about to submit, and I will be submitting. So it's a little difficult, to reveal. But it's something on like education and mobility.
Okay. Education and mobility. It's in
Yes.
development economics, right?
It's a development economics topic. But finally, what will be my final thesis topic, which you usually decide later on.
Okay.
Once you have all the 3 papers ready, then depending on the topics in those papers, you decide a title for your thesis. That's the last stage actually.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Taj, I have a question for you. I know that you have published a couple of papers, right? In fact, you published papers even before you started your PhD. I remember talking to you last year, and you were saying that you even have published articles on national and international newspapers, right? I remember in Reuters, I think in Telegraph, right? In the Telegraph.
Yeah.
So, how has been your experience? And tell us a bit more about that. What is your area of specialization? What exactly is you do?
So it was a fantastic experience, first of all, working for 6 years, given a lot of exposure to me in academic system. So let me tell you, publication has always motivated me. And in academia, if you wanted to be survive and known by the peers, you have to keep publishing, and most importantly in the top journals. I've been trying my best. I have achieved good milestone, but this is all like pre-PhD publications. I have more than 12 publications, including 8 international ones. But that is not going to much contribute in my job market. Basically, in US, they look for something, 3 papers. And if we have one good publication in top 20, 30 also, you will end up in getting into good program, good universities. It's very easy. So, but the thing is, like in economics, to publish in top journals, you have to wait for 2 hours for referring reports, addressing comments, and publication time is too high in economics discipline. So somehow, like in economics, they don't have publication till the 5th year. So, like, but yeah, they will be judged on the presentation and the 3 papers they have written. In my case, selecting the top is a little different because since I have worked for 6 years in the food policy issues, mostly like I was taking care of like issues with agriculture, development, and health. These were like environment too. These are like 4 domains like I was working for almost 6 years, including climate change, value change, how does crop burning affect how does pollution from crop burning affect your acute respiratory infections, how does the food system works in India, how does the PDS system is working, how effective is the programs. So it's kind of the mixture of agriculture, environment, development, and something like that. So in my case, if right now in my 3rd year, so I am going to finish my last semester of the coursework. So from next year, I have to submit my proposal. So whatever I will submit, it will be something related to the past experience because I already have the good background, good exposure, and couple of publications. So if I will continue this system like together, it will be beneficial for me. So I will be working on those sectors, and it varies from person to person. Like I have the experience, I have papers, so it motivated me. Someone who have not worked, they still like have open like what they want to do. I know like sometimes I feel excited about energy economics these days. I'm reading like international finance. It excites me like how does like oil price shocks affect GDP? You know, it's a fantastic topic. How does like monetary policy through the budget, physical policy like affecting the consumption expenditure or something like that. So you can always switch from any discipline to any other, but in my case, I will try to restrict in my domain, which I have the expertise from last 6 years.
Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, one question to both of you. Maybe Azhar, you can start first. So, what advice do you want to give to students who are pursuing undergrad or postgrad currently, who want to go for a PhD and in the PhD in the US? What advice do you want to give? How can they maximize their chances of being selected for a top PhD program in the US, but also in general, right, in Europe or even in India?
Okay, that's a very good question. So usually when you're planning for a PhD, you have to start this process 1 year before, prior to joining the PhD program. Let's say you want to go for PhD in 2021. It's high time right now that you start preparing for your PhD program. So I think the first thing one student should do if they're planning for a PhD in the US is to get these logistic things straight. First of all, you need to collect the transcript from all your university after class 12. You have to collect all the transcripts. And the second hurdle, and which is I think the most important factor, which is the GRE. So the higher GRE score you have, the higher the probability you'll get into a good PhD score.
So GRE is compulsory in the US, right? But it's not compulsory in the EU, right? In the Europe, in the UK.
Yeah, there are some. Yeah, in Europe, not all universities would want GRE score, but in the US, if you're applying for PhD in economics, for sure they will ask for GRE score, and they will have a cutoff, which is not official, of course. They will have some kind of cutoff with the GRE score. So let's say, so the first thing will be to get ready your transcripts then to give the GRE score. It doesn't make sense to look for universities. Okay, I want to go to this good university, blah blah blah. But if your GRE score is not good, you are actually not eligible for a good school.
Okay.
So depending on your
GRE
GRE
is a must.
score, GRE is a must. And then of course you have to give the TOEFL also, the language test, which is not that you don't get admission for that. But you need that score also, the TOEFL. But that will not determine
everywhere.
admission.
Like even if your master's program is in English in India.
It doesn't matter. You have to give it the TOEFL exam. You have to give.
Okay.
Even if you did your masters in English medium instruction, it doesn't matter. But I think I'm told there are a few universities in Europe where if you studied in English medium school, then they'll waive it. But in the US, they are not going to waive it.
Okay. How difficult is this exam? This TOEFL.
So the GRE is not a difficult exam. It's not you have to practice a lot. It's basically type management.
Okay.
It's basically, so we have two parts, right? In GRE exam, one is the quants and the one is the verbal. So the quants is basically the maths till class 10, which everybody can do. But there's a time limit. So you have to maximize the time efficiently. So depending on your GRE score, then you decide where that score will lead you an admission. Because if you have a good score, then you'll be able to apply in a better universities.
Okay.
But if you have a low GRE score, then you don't have much choice. You have to apply to a lower ranked universities.
Okay. I see.
So there is no point in searching for different universities, what programs they do have, what areas of specialization. I don't think that makes sense unless you have a good GRE score. Because you will not be eligible to apply to a good university if you do not have a good GRE score. And the second thing they look for is what courses you took. What maths course, especially the maths course you have taken in, let's say, in undergraduate or in masters. That's a very important factor.
Okay.
And of course, if you have research experience, if you have good recommendation, those things help. But I think these are the two main things you need to work on.
Okay.
And I think if you have already completed masters or if you're doing masters, you don't have much choice of choosing the right courses.
Okay.
So only thing you can improve on is your GRE score.
Okay.
That's the first thing they look for.
Okay.
Because the professors they'll be giving admission, they don't know about your university.
Right.
Especially if they're from India, from any university. Most likely they haven't heard of that university.
Right.
So how are they going to judge you?
I see.
So that's why the first thing they look for is GRE score. Then of course other things are also important, but those things will come later.
Okay. Okay. Good. You have anything to add, Mr. Khan?
Ajay rightly explained the importance of GRE. One thing at many universities in the US and almost in Europe also, those who are asking for GRE, they mentioned in the application procedure the percentile of quantity score. For example, in economics and engineering, for example, they weight more on the quant section.
Okay.
And the minimum requirement is 90 percentile somehow. Almost all the universities are 90 percentile. So GRE is a must. If you don't have good quantity score, for especially engineering and economics, let's say, then your application will be not accepted at the clerical level. So you will not be in the queue.
I see.
So you have to meet the minimum criteria for each department. So the first thing is depending on how good GRE score you have to optimize everything. Your resources, money, you should not suppose you're having low score and you're applying the Ivy League. It is not going to help you. Basically, you will waste the money.
Okay.
So basically, once you have the GRE score, try to look for the department and universities, the number of marks or percentile required minimum.
Okay.
If you meet the criteria, then you go for it. Otherwise, it is not advisable.
But how will you
If
know?
you
How
are-
will you know? How will you know that you will get through? I mean, your GRE score is sufficient for a given university.
You can always check the average GRE score for each department, each universities. You can check. There's a lot of websites are available. So in economics, let's say I know 163 out of 170. It's 90 percentile. majority of the department ask for this. If you do not meet, some universities ask minimum 158 out of 170, like 87 percentile, something like that. So if you meet this criteria, you apply. If you are like 1 or 2 percentile short, like shy, something or 2 marks shy, you can still take a chance. But it is advisable, like, not target the big one, once you don't have good GRE score.
Right.
My concern is like your resume, your grades, everything comes later. Nothing is in your hand. You already have done the master's, you have done the undergrad, so whatever course you have taken, it is already there. You also don't have control over letter of recommendation from the professors. You don't know how the professor is going to write.
Right.
So what is left with you is only and only GRE score and TOEFL score. In US, TOEFL is very important. Every funding, either TA-ship, because TA-ship is very important here. So if you don't have TOEFL score, for example, in US, mostly universities ask for 26 marks out of 30 in speaking section. There are 4 sections, like reading, speaking, listening, writing. So if you don't have 26 marks out of 30 in speaking sections, you are not eligible for teaching administration position. You are going to lose your...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, like, you have to make sure that you have a good GRE and good TOEFL. Everything comes later, like your statement of purpose, your resume, everything comes later.
What about your scores, your scores, your marks in masters and undergrad?
It does help. It does help. It does help. Sometimes it does help. But my concern is like you already have done undergrad. You can't change the number.
No,
you
for example, you are doing your masters now, right?
Yeah. Then of course you should maximize your numbers. You should get good grades. That is like everyone is like well-known Bible fact.
Right.
My concern is like you have to work on this aspect.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like very important.
And how about letter of recommendation? Is it help? Does it help if you get a letter of recommendation from a very famous faculty?
It's very, very important.
Okay.
But it is not under the control of any student. The professor writes the recommendations, and it's confidential. So he or she has no control what the professor is writing.
Okay.
And of course, everyone tries to get recommendation from top or good professors, right? It is how the system works to get into admission. But my concern is like, first come is like GRE TOEFL, second comes the university selection. This is very important steps.
Yeah.
You look for the specialization. Are there people who are working in this discipline or not? Are there any projects which are like ongoing in this department? Most cases, engineering, students get admissions through research funds.
Okay.
So if some ongoing funds are there, some research ongoing, they will have an idea like what kind of work they are doing.
Okay.
Right? So you can apply there. But you always have to look for the university selections, your GRE TOEFL score, and the best and most important thing is like statement of purpose. You have to write a very good, brief statement of purpose. Your background, how you are fit for this program, what you would like to contribute. And if you can, you don't have to write 5 pages. It is advisable to write 2 pages maximum, and you write in such a brief that someone reading this SOP will inspire him, will attract him, It has to be crux, it has to be like very brief, yeah.
How about having prior research experience? Does that help? Like, did it
come
help
again?
you? Whether having prior research experience help?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I will say it does help in cases where you are 19 or someone is 20, we don't have experience, someone else don't have experience. For example, suppose like, if there is not a big gap between those who don't have experience in the scores of GRE and TOEFL, you will be preferred. In my department, I am the one who had the research experience. And all the like guys, they don't have experience.
Okay.
So I think it does give a weight, but one should not rely on this because I know a lot of people without having experience, they end up in very good universities. And in US, they don't require the experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. A question to Azhar. maybe a last quick question before we wind up for the day. Uh, Question is, so let's say someone is in his masters, masters currently. Is it advisable to work for few years before applying for PhD, or is it good to actually start right after your masters?
Yeah, I think it's better to start immediately after masters.
Mm-hmm.
As Taz have already mentioned, research, they are not looking for a someone who has already research experience.
Mm-hmm.
They will train you.
Mm-hmm.
They will
Okay.
first uh, give you coursework, then they will train you to be a researcher. So they are not ideally looking for somebody who has vast experience in this. Of course, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
That will make your life easier, but I'll not recommend somebody, after masters,
Mm-hmm.
I would not recommend somebody to go for some research assistant. If they get an admission for PhD immediately, I think that's the best thing he or she can ask for. And another thing I want to mention is, let's say if somebody is planning for a PhD and who is currently doing masters in India,
Mm-hmm.
so there are two routes.
Mm-hmm.
One is they can directly apply for PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and the second route, which I did, was I opted for a master's in US.
Mm-hmm.
How does that help? So once you have a master's from US universities, then your PhD admission is almost guaranteed in the US.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And there are some universities in the US where they'll give you funding even for masters.
Mm-hmm. Did you
So
get
if
funding
you
for
are,
masters? Okay.
I got funding for masters.
Okay.
So, but not all university will give you funding for masters. So you have to search. You have to talk to somebody who did masters in the US who had funding. There are a few universities where you will get funding,
Okay.
which I think is not that a bad option, because getting into a masters is little easy
Mm-hmm.
than a PhD. And once you have a master's from US, it's much easier to get into a PhD program, to good PhD program, depending on your other things, of course. So that's another route some people can look for. Not directly going for PhD, opting for a master's, because they will give you funding. What's the harm in doing that?
Okay. So you
We'll
can
have
first
one
go
more
for
technique.
a master's, and then you continue with PhD in the same university, or you have to apply like all over again to other
Usually
universities.
people apply to different universities.
Even for masters, do you need a GRE?
Yeah, you need a GRE, but that requirement, the minimum score will be little less.
Okay.
That's the good thing about master's admissions. And the bad thing is, not like all universities. There are many departments where they will not have master program at all.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have exclusive master program at all. So you have to basically search
Okay.
what are the universities they are giving master's program and they're giving funding opportunities. There aren't many, so you have to look for those
It's a 2-year
universities.
master's program, right?
Yeah, it's a 2 years master's program.
I'm asking because in the UK you also have 1-year master program.
In the US, it's usually 2 years. Most of the universities will have 2 years, but you can finish it in 3 semesters.
Okay.
That's up to you. So basically, you have to take certain number of credit courses.
Mm-hmm.
If you can finish those credits, let's say 3 semester or 2 semester is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually 3 semester or 4 semester
Does it
in the US.
does it help in the qualifier also? Like do you get some concession?
No, I don't think it helps. So the master's level and the PhD level, the difficulty levels are there is a vast difference in difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
So masters is much easier. I would say that like the masters we did in India, it's like at par with that. Probably a little bit
More difficult.
tougher than our masters,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more or less at the same level. But PhD, it's definitely much tougher than the masters.
Is it tougher than even the program that we have in Delhi School of Economics or IGIDR?
I'm not in a good position to compare that,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. Like I have not seen their question pattern. Like so, it will not be fair for me to compare the difficulty levels. But it's one thing I can say that all the US university PhD programs, these are like very rigorous programs.
Mm-hmm.
But toughness, the question, I will not be able to comment on that. I think that will be unfair.
Okay. Okay. A question to Taz. I'd like to know from you how important it is to hone your soft skills if you want to pursue a PhD, not just in economics but also in other fields. How important it is to have good soft skill, not just communication skills, your speaking ability, your writing ability. That's obviously that goes without saying, but also your ability to network, your ability to market yourself, to create a brand for yourself. Um, just tell us about that. I know you are very good at networking, so.
Okay, okay. No. I think like networking and soft skills comes later. If you're not have good market value, you'll not people will hesitate to contact you
Right.
or communicate you.
Right.
So first of all, you have to build a strong perception, right, to others.
Yeah.
And of course, networking is very important. So it does help in jobs, but my recommendation is like you have to be confident in your work, whatever you're doing. Everything comes later. But this is like how the system works these days. You have to be smart enough in your work, and you also know how to sell your work. Suppose you are a team developer, suppose you develop some softwares. It's a very good, like, those techniques you have developed it, but you don't know how to sell it.
Right.
So, and at that point of time, your networking and communication skills will come. And that will make you something different from others, those who don't know how to do the marketing of this, right? So marketing is not like you are selling the market. It is like you are communicating your device, your inventions to the wider audience to reach everyone, right?
Right.
So I think it's important, but your hard work and your work is important first of all. Yeah.
Okay. Good answer. Okay. One more question to Taz. So you are in a state university, right? Not
Yes.
in a private university.
Yeah.
Is it better to be in a private university in the US or in a state university?
It is not like that. A lot of private universities are also like Harvard, like everything is like private universities, but it matters, like it doesn't matter, I think. There are a lot of good, like government public universities, there are a lot of private universities. I think it is not going to give like much information. I think it's not going to be a big difference. But generally, like public universities are more funded, but these days private universities have more resources, more innovation, more funding. So you can't say like which one is good or which one is better. You'll find like top 10 here, top 10 there. Like there are a lot of good universities in both sides. Yeah.
Okay. Another question to you, Taz, a small question, which is that what about the visa? I think you get visa for 5 to 6 years, right? And then
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Then after that, your employer
So-
has to sponsor you, right? Otherwise, you cannot stay back in the US.
Yes. So basically, like what I know right now, you are applying for like you're getting a PhD admission. You will get like F1 visa. Like with students like pursuing PhD or masters, they get F1 visa. So like in our case, like we have a 5-year PhD program. So we get 5 years visa. And after completing this job, you will be in job market.
Okay.
So after finishing the job, there is something called OPT. It's a kind of different visa. It depends on department. Some departments will give you 3 years of OPT. It's a kind of visa. You can work after your degree 3 years without any visa. And some departments give you 1 year visa.
Okay.
And in meantime, suppose like if you got a job in Microsoft, for example, in that point of time, then it is a Microsoft responsibility to file a H1B on your behalf,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And then you'll get H1B. And that is how it will work. The thing is, if you're getting a job in academia or research or non-profit organizations, the H1B visa is very, very easy. It's very common. But in corporates, if you're not going to the big like MNCs or corporates, it's really not easy, and the waiting time is 6 months. That is how it works. Right now, we have this information, and this we'll see in detail after 2 years, like how it is working. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, one more question on that. But how is the life in US? Um, how enjoyable it is? Um,
It's a good question, Pani. You are in Netherlands. You know well
yes, I know
that.
the life in Europe is very good actually, right? It's very easy.
So I
Public
must say
transportation
it's
is very
very
good.
good here as well. I must say it's very good here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like you're working. In fact, you are getting money. You
Mm-hmm.
are independent student. You can save money also. It's a very good life apart from social and like education also. Plus, the only thing like you miss here is like your friend circle and like your family.
Okay.
And on the job market side, on your academia, like brighter future, I think this is more important. I think it's very good right now for me. A lot of people have homesickness. Sometimes they like it's very difficult for them. But yeah, we have to keep engaging with family.
Right.
But otherwise, it's very good. We are getting decent amount of money. We're having a good flat, apartments while studying. It's very convenient for us. I think we'll say. Yeah.
Okay. Are there age limits for jobs in the US and
No.
also in India?
You
No,
will be
right?
surprised in my class where I am with the teaching assistantship.
Mm-hmm.
A 53-year guy is doing undergrad. 53-year guy. And sometimes he comes as a class to ask questions. I feel like, oh my god, like what should I respond to him? He's almost like my father age,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, people you'll find like different people like studying in like 40 years in PhD, 50 years in PhD. It's like very common here.
Ah.
No age limit for anything. Neither job, neither work, PhD, neither masters. Yeah. A lot of people are doing it.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. How about you, Taj? Are you enjoying life in US?
Yes, all good, brother, all good.
Azhar, are you also
No,
enjoying?
life here is extremely good. It should not be a concern if somebody is planning to come to US. He or she is going to enjoy the life here. It's everything you.
In what ways? I mean, enjoy in what ways? I mean, I know people don't talk to each other, right? It's very difficult to socialize in the US.
You
Right?
can socialize, and people are really helpful. You may not get helpful people you'll get here in other places.
Mm-hmm.
So starting from your faculty,
Mm-hmm.
like your colleagues, they're extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have asked for more.
Okay.
And so, that should not be a concern, how will be the life, visa, these things will come later. You will adapt and you will adjust. Life is, you'll get everything. I don't think there is a scarcity of anything.
Okay.
So there are many scarcities in our countries, but you will enjoy life, depending on the, where you are living.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a small city, you'll have, of course, less fun,
Mm-hmm.
but you will have the other facilities also.
Mm-hmm.
There is no scarcity of facilities.
Okay.
So you'll enjoy life. So that should not be a concern. I think it will be a little difficult to adjust initially, to adapt, but eventually you will enjoy. Everybody will enjoy.
Okay. Cool. Great. Okay, we have covered almost everything that one would like to know about doing a PhD in the US, but also in general the career options in the field of economics, right? I think today we talked about the options that you have in the academia, but also a bit about other options, right? In India, we have opportunities in the Reserve Bank of India, also opportunity in the government of India, right? Also in the state government, I guess, right? I know some of our friends like Milind and all, not Milind. I think Lipi, right? Lipi is working with government of India, right? The others also from environmental economics, Taj, from your branch, who are working with different ministries, also research establishment. Um, is it a good career? Is it a fun job? I know you also have some experience.
For me, it was like very good,
Mhm.
and I'm in touch with like Lipi,
Mm.
and one more. I think like she had a very good experience working with government of India. She was working for Niti Aayog.
Right.
She worked for 3 years. and then later she moved to the like chief economic advisor office. I think she was very happy. Right now, she have left the job. She is like, I think she is doing something else. I'm not in touch, but I know about this. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a good experience for her. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Wonderful talking to both of you. Anything, any last remark?
Yes. We have a question for you, especially me.
Yes.
Like, since you have been working for almost 8 years in the industries,
Yes.
like, what do you think about like how is the job market for PhD level like graduates in your industry, or like do you see like every day like PhD people in your domain, and how it is working, how it is functioning? Are there any jobs like how it is like something like that? Yeah.
Okay. Again, it depends on whether you're talking about India or Europe, because I have experience of working in India, in UK, and in EU. In India, I think places where PhDs are hired, they give a lot of importance to people with PhD. Okay.
Okay.
Like I used to work with Ford. There, if you are a PhD, then you get two promotion higher than someone fresh
Okay.
from master's program, right? That like from the day one, right? So you are two level higher than the guy who is just a master.
Masters.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is not the case in Europe, by the way. In Europe, you join more or less at the same level as a master's,
Okay.
right? And I work with many PhDs, PhD from physics, from maths, from computer science, also from econometrics and economics. There are many PhDs working with me. In banks, PhDs are valued a lot. Why? Because the kind of work that we do in bank, it requires you to have a good theoretical knowledge, good writing skills, good communication skills, good skills when it comes to doing academic research, because our work is pretty much like academic research.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to read papers, you need to write documents which are pretty much like academic documents, not of that level of quality, but very similar. So
Okay.
having a PhD is valued a lot in the industry, and especially after 2012 and 13, when this database research is not just valued in banks, because it has always been very important in banks, but also in other industries these days, right? So you have lots of opportunities in other industries as well, beside banks, because I'm working with banks, so I can only talk about banks, but also in consulting firms and all, you have plenty of opportunity. In India, you have
Okay.
McKinsey, you have Ernst and Young, hiring PhDs from different disciplines, and you know that our former director is currently working with EY, right?
Yes, Dr. D.K. Srivastava
Yes,
is the chief economist of EY.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So I know even people leaving academia to work for industry, right? I have two
Yeah.
colleagues actually working with me
These
here in
days,
Netherlands.
there are synergies. These days, there are synergies in research and industries.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I think the salaries are a bit better in industry, especially the initial salaries.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think after a while, you saturate in industry, but I think you get good salary in academia. So that is the
Yeah.
only trade-off. Whether you want to wait to get good salary, if that is okay with you, then academia is a good place. Beside other good things about academia, obviously there is less freedom in industry as compared to say in academia. I mean, in academia you do not have a boss, right? You are your own boss, right? But that is not the
True.
case in industry. Okay. So, and
Okay.
it's easier to uh, you know change your career from academia to industry, but the other way around is a bit more difficult, right? I have not come across people who have worked in industry for 10-15 years and gone back to teach in universities. Well, some I know, in business
Yes,
schools and all,
yeah.
right? Our
Yeah.
Bhaduri sir, right? He was one of the.
Recently, I met a guy who was in 10 years in industries, and he went back. He came back again to the academia. I said like, why you came back? He said like, I just like I wanted to switch something to try this system. Like, how does it work?
Right.
Basically, like he has the options to go back again, right?
Right.
So a lot of people do experiments from coming from research to academia, academic
Right.
research. Like this is how it goes. Yeah.
राइट बढ़िया बढ़िया है
Great.
सर. तो हम लोगों ने सारा बात इंग्लिश में करा, बट ये हम लोग का जो मेरा चैनल है ना, इसमें हम हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों में बात करते हैं नॉर्मली. तो ऐसा नहीं कि
बिल्कुल
बस
खाली
इंग्लिश
साहब.
में. ठीक है.
क्या करते हैं?
ठीक है.
हम्म.
तो और
ध्यान
कभी
दे
फिर
देंगे.
बात करेंगे. ठीक है. मैं सोच रहा हूँ डिबेट्स और डिस्कशंस ये भी इस टाइप का कंटेंट भी बनाने के लिए, जैसे इंडियन इकोनॉमी, ठीक है, इस पे हम बात कर सकते हैं, या फिर वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी या इकोनॉमिक एंड पैंडेमिक, अदर जो टॉपिक्स है, राइट, जो कि जो मतलब जो सिविल सर्विस के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं, या फिर जो स्टेट सर्विसेज के लिए या बैंक जॉब्स के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं, या फिर जो PhD या फिर जो पढ़ रहे हैं, जस्ट दे आर डूइंग द मास्टर्स और बैचलर्स. आई थिंक फॉर देम इट विल बी इंटरेस्टिंग टू नो अबाउट दिस थिंग्स फ्रॉम एक्सपर्ट्स, people like who are specializing in some fields, right? तो मैं आप लोगों को फिर से इनवाइट करूँगा for these kind of discussions, right, to be a panel member. I'll also invite others. I'm part of a group called Amo Prayas.
Okay.
It's a group where we have so many people from JNU, actually many PhD students from JNU, at least 20 PhD students from JNU, and also from BHU, IITs and IIMs. I'll also invite people from these universities, and also from the European universities, and I'll also invite you guys sometimes to discuss on other topics. So it was a wonderful discussion with both of you. I would like to thank both of you. I know it's late in the night in the US, but wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Fani, for having us, and have a great weekend. And Azhar, you too. And see you sometime soon.
Yeah, talk to you
Thank
soon,
you.
guys.
Take
Thanks.
care. Take care, Fani.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.